In the modern age of sports debate, where podcasts and social media hot takes often shape public perception, few conversations cut deeper than when legends are questioned. That's exactly what happened when Hall of Famer Michael Irvin, one of the fiercest competitors in NFL history, launched a passionate defense of his longtime friend and former teammate, Deion Sanders. The Spark, a controversial podcast that dared to belittle the greatness of Sanders' playing era, an era Irvin believes defined the true essence of football. It began innocently enough. The Colorado Buffaloes, led by head coach Deion Coach Prime Sanders, stumbled to a 2-4 start in the 2025 college football season. What followed was a storm of criticism, some targeting his coaching tactics, others questioning his cultural approach to leadership. But this time, the criticism went beyond the sideline. A discussion on the Facts Over Feelings podcast suddenly veered toward Sanders' playing career, igniting outrage from those who witnessed his brilliance firsthand. The host suggested that the legends of the late 1980s and 1990s, the golden generation that produced Sanders, Irvin, and Jerry Rice, would struggle to compete in today's faster, more athletic NFL. The argument implied that Sanders, once the most electrifying cornerback in football, might not dominate in the same way if he played today. To make matters worse, the hosts juxtaposed photos of Irvin and Rice with modern stars like Odell Beckham Jr. and Tyreek Hill, insinuating that the legends looked outdated, even ordinary, compared to the lean, sculpted physiques of modern players. For Michael Irvin, that was the final straw. The emotional fire that fueled his Hall of Fame career instantly reignited. In a raw, unfiltered video response that quickly went viral, Irvin erupted with the kind of passion that defined his playing days with the Dallas Cowboys. "Are you ting me?" he barked into the camera, his voice shaking with anger and pride. "We are the two most accomplished receivers in the history of this game when you're talking about the most important thing, championships." His voice only grew louder and more charged as he continued. "And you're stupid talking about running fast, like people weren't running fast back then. Are you ting me?" It wasn't just a rant. It was a defense of an entire generation. A generation that fought for every inch on the field, before the days of tailored gloves and precision route trees, when receivers were allowed, even encouraged, to be mauled by defensive backs at the line of scrimmage. Irvin reminded the world that the football of his era was violent, unforgiving, and raw. Receivers didn't have the luxury of protection from defensive contact. Quarterbacks weren't shielded by flags at the slightest hint of a late hit. Every yard gained came at the cost of pain and risk. "You didn't just play football back then," Irvin once said in another interview. "You survived it." While athletes today undoubtedly benefit from advanced training regimens, specialized nutrition, and sports science breakthroughs, Irvin's central point was this: greatness transcends eras. "You can talk about speed all you want," he implied. "But if you put Deion Sanders in this modern game, with these rules, this protection, and these conditions, he'd embarrass every receiver in the league." And deep down, most football purists would agree. What made Irvin's fiery defense even more powerful was the deep personal bond between him and Deion Sanders. Their friendship wasn't born out of convenience or nostalgia. It was forged in the crucible of championship football. When the Dallas Cowboys ruled the NFL in the 1990s, Irvin and Sanders stood at the center of that dynasty. Their personalities, bold, confident, and unapologetically flamboyant, made them the beating heart of America's team. Over the years, that brotherhood evolved into something far more profound. When Sanders began battling severe health issues, Irvin was one of the first to show up, not as a fan, not as a peer, but as a brother. Sanders' struggles with blood clots led to the amputation of 2 toes in 2021, a devastating physical and emotional blow for a man once known as the fastest in football. Yet, through it all, Irvin was there, visiting him during surgeries, checking in during recovery, and using humor to lift Sanders' spirits. On social media, Irvin once shared, "My bishop always said when your loved ones are dealing with any difficult issues, you must find ways to make them laugh and change their frequency." Sanders, responding in his signature mix of humor and gratitude, said, "Y'all know Mike a fool." But behind the laughter was an unbreakable loyalty, the kind that only comes from shared glory and shared struggle. Earlier this year, when Sanders revealed his battle with bladder cancer, Irvin again made the journey to be by his side. For Irvin, supporting Prime was more than an act of friendship. It was repayment of a spiritual debt to someone who had stood with him through his own darkest days. The unshakable connection between Irvin and Sanders was immortalized in Netflix's hit documentary America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys. The series peeled back the curtain on one of sports' most iconic dynasties, and within it, an entire episode titled Prime Time celebrated Sanders' extraordinary impact, not just as an athlete but as a cultural icon. In the series, Sanders' charisma leaps off the screen. "I run like a Lamborghini," he says with a grin, perfectly capturing the confidence that made him both beloved and polarizing. "Pressure ain't on me," he continued. "Pressure is on them because you prepared and you studied." It's the mantra that defined his career and now fuels his coaching philosophy in Boulder. One particularly poignant moment in the documentary recalls the moment Cowboys owner Jerry Jones debated whether to spend $35 million to sign Sanders. There were doubts about locker room chemistry, egos, and money. But before the debate could even finish, Irvin, the emotional center of that Cowboys team, shut it down with 4 words: "If we can get Deion, we get Deion." That was Irvin's instinctive belief in greatness, and it's the same instinct that surfaced again this week when he heard anyone questioning Sanders' legacy. Irvin always understood that Sanders wasn't just a player. He was a phenomenon, a walking spectacle who changed the way football was played, marketed, and celebrated. Fast forward to 2025, and Deion Sanders now faces a different kind of challenge. Instead of covering receivers or returning punts, he's managing expectations, player development, and the harsh reality of a rebuilding program at Colorado. After a meteoric debut season that electrified college football, the Buffaloes have struggled to recapture that same magic. A 2-4 record midway through the season has many pundits turning critical, even cynical. But to those who know Sanders' DNA, resilience is simply part of his story. Michael Irvin's expletive-laced defense was not just about the past, it was about the present. It was a message to those doubting Coach Prime that greatness doesn't disappear when circumstances change. It adapts, it fights, it evolves. Sanders' journey from NFL superstar to college head coach is not one of decline, but of reinvention. To this day, Sanders' career remains one of the most unique in sports history. 2 Super Bowl championships, a Hall of Fame jacket, and legitimate success in 2 professional sports. He wasn't just great, he was transcendent. The man made excellence look easy and swagger look sacred. Irvin, with his trademark passion, sees no difference between the man he lined up with in Dallas and the man pacing the sidelines in Boulder. The competitive fire is the same, only the uniform has changed. And when critics forget that, Irvin is there to remind them, loudly, emotionally, and unapologetically. What makes Irvin's outburst resonate is not just his loyalty, but what it represents. A defense of an era when football was more than statistics and analytics. It was raw emotion, unfiltered intensity, and pride in the struggle. Players like Sanders and Irvin weren't defined by data but by heart, and that, Irvin argues, can't be measured or compared across generations. So when a podcast host casually dismisses the legends of the past, it's not just an insult to Sanders or Irvin. It's a jab at the men who laid the foundation for today's stars, men who played through pain, who earned their respect in an unforgiving league, and who, decades later, still carry the scars that prove it. As the Colorado Buffaloes continue their uphill fight this season, one thing remains clear. Deion Sanders will never fight alone. His former teammate, his brother in competition and in life, stands ready to battle alongside him. Not with pads and helmets this time, but with words and passion. Michael Irvin's voice, filled with anger, nostalgia, and love is more than a defense of a friend. It's a rallying cry for every fan who believes that greatness, true greatness, doesn't fade with time or criticism. Because in Irvin's eyes, and in the eyes of anyone who witnessed Deion Sanders glide across a football field in his prime, there will always be only one prime time. And no podcast, no critic, and no losing season will ever change that.